So the reason why I'm putting all of my information in a video is basically to save you money. I know that people go to a therapist for the first time, pay a handsome sum of money, and then feel that they don't connect with that person. And I feel that it's not really fair, so you see this video, you see that perhaps you want to work with a bearded Brazilian, and then you come in for a first session. So I specialize in 4 things. Life transitions. It's a broad term, but it's something that I am extremely acquainted with as a clinician and as a human being. Life transition means anything from switching jobs, losing jobs, switching relationships, losing relationships. A life transition is entering a new stage of life, so from adolescent to adult, or from bachelor to married person, from married person to parent, from middle-aged adult to elderly adult. So, a life transition is anytime you feel, sometimes you switch careers, sometimes you switch aspects of your personality, sometimes you have things happen to you which then cause your life to transition even against your will. So for people who are going through a life transition, the term resonates with them as being something that is extremely difficult and that requires attention and then care. Relational issues also is a term that, if you're struggling through this, will be a term that will resonate with you. It could be a partner, it could be a husband or wife, it could be a best friend, it could be a son or daughter, it could be a parent, it could be a coworker, a family member, a former partner. I think that outside of health issues and monetary problems, the next hardest thing in life is human relationships. And the longer a relationship is, the more tricky it gets to navigate that relationship in a way that's positive and beneficial. So, human relationships are kind of a big one, and it's definitely something I have spent most of my practice working with as well. So, acute trauma is a term to differentiate between complex trauma and acute trauma. Okay? So, acute trauma is basically your life is going along, pretty normal, highs and lows, and then something happens. Something happens which kind of shatters it. And this something might last 30 seconds or 3 hours, okay? Anything longer than that starts already to enter a trickier, kind of complex trauma, okay? But in these 3 seconds to 3 hours, something happened, and it changed everything, and not in a positive direction. So that's what acute trauma is, and to tell the truth, it's one of the few things that there is an actual effective treatment for. And it does not last years. In all honesty, the treatment revolves around, building trust for a little bit and then going straight into treatment. And it could take anywhere from 2 months to maybe 9-10 months. And of course, there are no guarantees in life, but acute trauma is extremely treatable, and it's quite a joy to be able to help people with that. And finally, self-esteem. And I know that it's a pop psychology culture that uses that term for everything, but honestly, self-esteem is not something that people come by effortlessly. And sometimes we need a little support. We need a little support. Finding what it is about ourselves that is truly worthwhile. What it is about ourselves that needs to be honored by others. Finding out what it is about ourselves that deserves everything. I think most people might be afraid of their excellence. You know, I think that a lot of people, perhaps most people, walk around pretending to be small because they're afraid of how big they could truly be. And that's what I mean by self-esteem. So yeah, I work with adults, and I adore my work with adults. And I work with adults as elderly as 80 or 90, and I have for a very long time. And I also work with adolescents, and I term that a 12 to 17-year-old, right? Here's why I love working with adolescents. They give permission for the therapy to be as real as it possibly can, right? Most teenagers can smell BS a mile away, and I enjoy working the most genuine way I possibly can, and adolescents are a very good population to do that with. I've also been lecturing to adolescents. I have a professional lecture that Brown University hires me for every year for the past 9 years. I'm also a program director at a nonprofit in Longmont that works directly with adolescents on a weekly basis. And I'm not embarrassed to say that I am fully capable of holding an adolescent frame of mind. When I work with them, it's almost like I not just remember but re-experience that frame of mind, and then we speak a similar language, and it's incredibly fun and pretty effective in terms of an adolescent's preference for who they want to work with them. And of course, I keep parents in mind, I keep families in mind, and I work with them too. But adolescents can get that anywhere. With me, they might get something something a little different. But yeah, I do home visits. I have an office in Longmont, which I adore. It's the office I'm in right now. But anything outside of Longmont, I do home visits. So I do these in Boulder, I do these in Erie, I do these, in all the cities surrounding Boulder. And there's several reasons why I do home visits. One, some people don't want to drive to therapy. They don't. It's inconvenient. They don't want to think about the gas. They don't want to think about getting into the cold weather or into the hot day. They just want to stay at home and have therapy come to them. And I can do that. Another reason why is because some people can't go somewhere for therapy. They're either disabled, or they have a condition that emotionally prevents them from being able to do so. And I love being able to afford them a service that's not just Skype. And the final thing is that when you work with somebody in their own space, you learn more than you ever would in your office, right? Everybody's home or room is their kind of kingdom, and there's an incredible amount of information and experience that I get from working with somebody in their own home. The one disadvantage of home visits is that lamentably I cannot charge less than my full fee. So I mentioned my fee, right? And of course I believe in a sliding scale. And the way the sliding scale is, for every client that does pay my full fee, they act a little bit like a Robin Hood, right? Where them paying me my full fee allows me to charge everybody else the most reduced version of my full fee. Another thing that I am kind of big on is insurance. So I absolutely write invoices that you can submit to your insurance company, and most often they reimburse 50, 60, 70, 80% of your session, okay? But I only do so after fully making you understand that anytime you involve insurance into therapy, they require a therapist to give you a diagnosis. And it has to be a diagnosis that can be proven in a court of law, or else it's considered insurance fraud. Okay, so some people don't care about that, don't care about having an insurance company know that they can be diagnosed with something. And some people care severely. Some people don't want that in any record anywhere. And I respect that, and I'll respect any decision a person has around that, but it is really important for me that that be in full disclosure. I'm sure you see in the Psychology Today website that I do conduct therapy in Spanish, in Portuguese, and in English. The reason for that is that I grew up in 5 countries before I moved to the United States for my undergraduate education. And in these 5 countries, I always attended American international schools. So I got to learn 2 languages based on the countries that I grew up, and I got to learn English based on the schools that I attended and have attended ever since. What that means also is that people who grow up in several different cultures and who speak several different languages learn an ability called code switching, which is an ability to perceive all aspects of reality as being indicative of a culture. So when a person comes to me and they share their idea of what reality means, I get to see it as true, as opposed to compare their idea of reality as to what regular people think. Because in my mind, there is no regular person and there is no regular reality. All of behavior and thought and cultural norm to me is relative, right? Each country and each culture really is a different planet. And I can believe that within a culture, each person can sometimes be a different planet too. And I don't see that as wrong or needing correction. So for a lot of my clients, that is a very refreshing view, and it's one that I sort of can't help but doing because it's been my experience as well. People come to therapy for several reasons, and I think the 4 most powerful reasons I have found is that 1, every human being is a scientist, right? And the science that they work with is the one where they get to test out their beliefs of reality, their beliefs of themselves, their beliefs of their emotions, and they get to test it out against the world, right? Sometimes their science and their experiments work and everything makes sense and everything flows. And sometimes they're finding that they cannot discover through their science, through their trial and error, through their own means, they sometimes cannot discover the next thing. And the next thing could be, how do I get better at managing this emotion? How do I get better at managing this relationship? How do I grow in a way that I've seemed unable to, right? I mean, like, everybody has an ambition, and everybody tries it on their own for months or years or decades, and sometimes comes to a point where they're like, okay, maybe I need another perspective. Maybe I need a few tools that I haven't yet experienced. So that's one big reason why I think therapy is incredibly useful. Another one is me time. For a lot of people, having a space where they get to unabashedly sit in their experience, be with their experience, and they don't have to feel that they need to take care of anybody, that they need to be worried about another person's opinion, that they don't need to feel shy, that they don't need to monitor or self-censor. for a lot of people, they don't have that experience. I mean, with all those facets, they don't have that experience with their partners, with their kids, with their friends. It's a lot to ask of a person, and that's one of the gifts of therapy, right? You come to me, and I'm absolutely there to hold all of your experience. And I require no caretaking, right? I don't judge. I just hold all of your experience. And then from that place, people sometimes become fearless in looking within. And when you're fearless to look within, you start becoming fearless to act without. Right? You can be who you are inside of yourself for long enough that you then are comfortable to be who you are outside with others in the world. And that's another amazing reason to come to therapy.